Hi everyone, great to see you. Thank you for coming to today's deep dive. These are of course non-singing sessions. They are opportunities for us to learn a little bit about the music that we love so much. And actually today, well, normally it would be some kind of choral work, wouldn't it, given that we're home choir, but today is concerned primarily with one particular chord, which is for the most part associated with instrumental music, but it's what that chord means, what that chord did for music, how it changed music forever, and some of the responses to it. So we are, of course, talking today about Wagner's Tristan Chord from Tristan and Isolde. We're also going to look a little bit at Debussy, the great French composer's reaction to this, and mention some other notable uses of the chord. Here on, well, we're going to have to redo the title, which will now go... Homechoir. Believe you me, you're going to know an awful lot about that chord in about half an hour's time. We've got some brilliant performances, including a complete performance of the Cakewalk from Children's Corner by Debussy himself, played by our very own Anna, and it's a performance she's recorded for us to use here on the channel, so it's an exclusive, and it's a brilliant performance to boot. So looking forward to sharing that with all of you. Just let me double check that everything's working. Well, clearly the piano's working. How is everyone doing there in the comments? Thank you, Colette. What a lovely comment. Colette loves the deep dives, learning so much. Well, that's brilliant. Now, just bear with me a second, as I say. If you're watching this later on, we're not going to start the actual lecture properly for about another 3 minutes or so. I'll put a link in the description after we've streamed it so you can jump through my preamble and wishing people happy birthday and saying hello to everyone who's here in the live chat. You can get straight to the good stuff. But if you are watching and you haven't yet subscribed, you're one of the hundreds of people who watches our broadcasts and have not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It does not cost you a penny. It's just a click of that red subscribe button and you help us on our way towards our 4,000 subscriber target. If you'd also consider giving us a thumbs up, if you're watching later on, also consider giving us a comment underneath the video. We do read them all. We love to hear from you. Thank you so much for that in advance. And then everyone who is here live and enjoying the live chat and each other's company, good afternoon to you. Hello in particular to those who are watching but are not in the live chat. So hello to Helene and Bill and Val. Hello to Sue and Tony. Hello to Sally and Annie and to Maureen. Hello to Harry and June. Hello to Anne and Linda and Charlotte and Nikki. Hello to Huyen. Hello to Val. Hello to Katie and Thornbury. I'm not sure if that's absolutely everyone, but those are the people I usually say hello to. And anyone else, if you're watching live at the moment but not in the chat, hello to you. And then hello everyone, well I would say over here, but it's the home choir thing over here today. So hello everyone who is here in the live chat, who is here this afternoon. Good afternoon, Atty. Hello, Alison. Hello, Kathy. Hello, Colette. Hello, Dave. Hello, Jill. Hello, Elizabeth. Hello, Emma. Hello, Irena. Hello, Lisa. Hello, Mary. Hello, Nicola. Hello, Nikki. Hello, Nina. Hello, Patricia. Hello, Susanna. Hello to all of you. Hello, Gaynor. I saw Jill here earlier on. Hello, Kim. Lovely to have you with us too. I saw that Jill is going to catch up later on when she's finished playing golf. Carolyn will be here as well. Hello, Kathy. Good afternoon to you. Well, everyone, I hope you're looking forward to it. It is, I think, it's one of the more fascinating discussions, this chord. What it is, what it means, and what it did, what it unlocked. I mean, it's very clear to say, and very plain to say, this is one of the most important chords ever written, because of what it means for the 20th century. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not. Sometimes I overegg things. I do own up to that. Hands up. But no, the Tristan chord. There are so many books written on this one chord. Just that. You think, what's so special about that? You're going to find out. Particularly when it moves to that. Hello to Mary, who's ready to be enlightened. That's marvellous. And just so you know, all of the examples and exemplars that I'm using this afternoon, you will find links to in the description. And I'm very grateful to everyone who's put stuff up on YouTube that I've been able to just cherry pick examples from. Some of them I can't show you because I'll get immediately copyright struck. But everything that you need is after this lecture, of course, you will find in the description. So do please avail yourself of all those links. There's enough material there for a good couple of hours of just exploring and listening and discovering about this incredible piece of music. But I think we should get started. Some lovely comments from people who are live. Well, I do hope you enjoy them. I have great fun putting these deep dives together. It's something a bit different, allows me to indulge my teacher side, although I'm not wearing a corduroy jacket today because it's far too warm. I think we just need to imply the corduroy jacket and leather elbow patches. So I think we should begin, everyone. Welcome to Homechoir. Today, as I've just said, it's not a singing session, it's one of our deep dives, and more on that in a minute. But let me just talk to the members of the choir who are here to remind you that we have a couple of really good singing sessions coming up. The day after tomorrow, we shall be singing A Windmill in Old Amsterdam. I recorded the backing track for that today. Plenty of polka accordion and tuba. A really, really good song. Very, very catchy indeed. Consider yourself warned. But there's that. How can you say no to that cheery little mouse? All right, so come along and sing with me about I Saw a Mouse. I saw a mouse. Where? Indeed. There on the stair. Come and sing with me on Friday and you'll find out where the mouse is. And then on Sunday, we're going to sing a wonderful range of music from the sacred repertoire. And of course, you can find out everything you need to know about Homechoir, including details of our upcoming town halls, which are happening next week. We'd love you to come along because this is where we're going to share with you, well, really what Homechoir is up to at the moment and the direction we want to take it in now that Homechoir is officially its own company. It's called Limited by Guarantee. It's a non-profit, and we want to talk to you about how we're going to grow the channel and how you can help. So come along to one of our town halls, running 3 of them next week. Details are in the newsletter. It's open to anyone. Please go to the website, sign up, and you are done. And don't forget to tell us when your birthday is, because if you do, we can sing happy birthday to you. And we've got 3 home choristers celebrating their birthday today. Katerina, Patricia and Sean. All of them are subscribers to the channel. So to all 3 of you, happy birthday for today. There's your note, everyone. Let's sing for these 3 lovely home choristers. Ready? 1, 2. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Katerina, Patricia and Sean. Happy birthday to you. And many happy returns of the day to all 3 of you. So everyone, as promised, this is a deep dive. This series of ours, which we started, well, I mean, when we first started the channel, but this recent series started 6 weeks ago, and we've had a look at pieces like Bach's Jesu Joy and Vivaldi's Gloria and Zadok the Priest and so on. It's time to do something a little bit more romantic in all senses. And today we are going to look at one particular chord, which is in the context of Wagner's Tristan and Isolde. We're also going to talk about Debussy's response and mention a few other key composers. So what is it about this chord? Well, I'm going to play you the very, very start of Tristan and Isolde, which is an opera by Wagner composed in the 19th century. And what you're about to hear has been described by many musicologists as the last chord of the Romantic era and the first chord of the 20th century. It's not it's not an exaggeration to say this chord changed music forever. And it sounds like this. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, that doesn't sound too dramatic. In fact, if anything, it sounds like film music. Well, this is an incredible step forward in music. Bearing in mind that up until this point, composers had been gradually increasing the complexity and the intensity of chords, starting with the Baroque era with nice straightforward consonant chords, occasionally with nice suspensions. The classical era brought new developments in chromaticism, rising, and so on. The Romantic era made those chords almost interchangeable with anything else. It was the Tristan chord that unlocked music and meant that anything could be possible. But before we discuss it in more detail, we need to talk about the man who wrote it, and it's this chap here, who has quite literally a neck beard. This is Richard Wagner, and he was born in 1813. He was a prominent figure in the 19th century Western classical music scene. He created a radical shift in musical thought, in particular with his operas, or his music dramas, as he preferred to call them. I don't think he liked the term opera. He was doing something different. And a key feature of Wagner's operas, of his music dramas, was the use of what he called endless melody, or in German, unendliche Melodie. And what this means is that rather than a series of traditional operatic structures, so that would be arias and choruses and duets separated by recitatives, Wagner's music flows seamlessly from one event to the next, mirroring the flow of the drama. He was the first composer to do this. And I'm sure you can imagine, therefore, what kind of opportunities that created for the narrative and for the drama. Now, before we talk any more about the music, we do need to address the elephant in the room, and that is Wagner's politics, and in particular his views on race, which are more than a little controversial. He was highly anti-Semitic and wrote particularly pungently about the Jewish people and of people of colour. His views, combined with the vast romantic operatic landscapes in his music, very much inspired the far right in Germany in the late 1800s and early 1900s to co-opt his music into the German nationalist movement. You might even want to refer to it as Make Germany Great Again. And as we know, this led to some extraordinarily dark places and atrocities in the 20th century. Interestingly, post-war, the fact that his music had been so integral to the Nazi movement led to the breaking down of harmony, of melody and tonality in music in general, and led to the experimental music of the 1950s and 60s, composers like John Cage and Steve Reich breaking down the cells of music to try and find a different way to express it, because Wagner's music had been used so badly, or to fuel so many evil deeds, that it was seen as we needed a new sound. But to return to Wagner, that all being said, it is vital to note that Wagner's influence on opera in music cannot be overstated. And Wagner's music, with its unprecedented use of harmony, his harmonic language, deeply affected the course of Western music and led directly to the way we listen to music in movies. You might recognise some key movies here to my left. His concept of Gesamtkunstwerk, or total artwork, which is the synthesis of all arts, including drama, music, the visual arts, all together, working together, transformed the operatic scene. And vitally for film music, Wagner also used something called leitmotifs, and these are musical phrases that are associated with a particular character, idea, or emotion. So, to give you some examples from here on screen, if you remember Steven Spielberg's film, John Williams' score about shark that plays the cello, there is a leitmotif. You could also have Darth Vader. It gets to the point in the film where once that leitmotif, that idea, is associated with a character, you don't even need to see the character on screen. You just need to hear the music and you know the character is coming. That is a leitmotif, and it was Wagner who pioneered this idea. And his significant works, of course, include The Ring Cycle, which is a set of 4 operas based on the Nordic sagas, and Tristan and Isolde, which is known for its revolutionary harmonic language. We'll talk about that more in a minute. There's also works such as Die Meistersinger von Nürnberg, which is a masterwork of his maturity, which offers a more traditional harmonic approach, but was no less innovative in its integration of music and drama. Now, quickly, we need to talk about the plot of Tristan and Isolde, because you need to know the story before you hear any of the music. It's based on a Celtic legend, lovers in a medieval romance. The hero, Tristan, goes to Ireland to ask the hand of the Princess Isolde for his uncle, King Mark of Cornwall. On their return, the two mistakenly drink a love potion which was meant for the king and fall deeply in love. After many adventures together, they make peace with King Mark, who marries Isolde. The distraught Tristan goes to Brittany, where he marries another lady, also called Isolde. You can tell this is an opera. When he's wounded by a poisoned arrow, he sends for his true love, for the first Isolde. His jealous wife tells him that his true love has refused to come, and he dies just before she arrives. and she dies in his arms. Oh. And it takes 4.5 hours for this to unfold. Now, Tristan und Isolde is an opera in 3 acts composed between 1857 and 1859. It premiered on the 10th of June in 1865. Now, Wagner referred to the work, as we've already discussed, not as an opera, but he called it eine Handlung, which is literally a drama, a plot, or an action. It's widely acknowledged as a pinnacle of the operatic repertoire. Tristan was notable for Wagner's unprecedented use of chromaticism, that is to say, moving around via semitones. But he also included elements of tonal ambiguity. You weren't sure whether you were listening to major or minor. Also, vast developments in orchestral colour, the combinations of different instruments to create different sounds. And this photo here, I love this. This is of the original Tristan und Isolde from the original performance. This is Ludwig and Malvina Schnorr von Karlsfeld. Of course it is. From the first performance in 1865. And today's discussion revolves around a tiny yet critical element from this opera, the Tristan Chord. And here it is. You heard it at the beginning of the broadcast, but it sounds like this. Now, within the opera, that phrase opens the entire work, and it returns throughout. And it's the musical embodiment of the unfulfilled longing between the opera's main characters, Tristan and Isolde, and the unresolved nature of the chord mirrors the unresolved passion between the two protagonists. And it establishes a link between the musical and the dramatic narratives. This idea of the work being, the music and the drama and the visuals being inextricably interwoven. And this Tristan chord creates an unresolved musical tension, a departure from traditional harmony and resolution. And this sense of yearning and lack of resolution becomes a defining characteristic of the late 19th century music and paves the way for what was to come in the 20th century. That is, the dissolution of traditional tonality. It's fair to say that Wagner wrote this chord, and it was the first chord of the 20th century, paving the way for composers like Stravinsky and Debussy, and later on Schoenberg and Berg, and jazz and film music all started here. It is one of the most significant chords in the history of music, not for its complexity, but the revolutionary way in which it's treated. Traditional rules of harmony dictate that music should flow in a specific way, what you might consider tropes or cliches, but this breaks all of those. It challenges the norms. So what is so special about this chord? Let's unpack it quickly, shall we? You can see here it's labelled with 2 separate motifs. You've got the longing motif, and you can hear that there's longing there, that rising minor sixth, which is such an emotional interval, which then falls to a chromatic note, and then again softly to another chromatic note. Now, underneath that, Wagner puts a fourth and then the major third. So if I play that, and the relationship between the bass and that longing note is consecutive minor sevenths, which you wouldn't hear until jazz came along decades later. So already there's tension which falls to another tension. It is unresolved. But on top of that, one of the reasons this is so clever is you have the desire motif, which instead of falling is rising. And it's almost as if one of the characters is being encapsulated by the longing motif and the other one by the desire. It's like they're facing away from each other and moving apart, even though what they really wanted to be together. And the overwhelming impression is just so intense and so beautiful. And it sounds quite normal to our 21st century ears. I'm sure many of you have either heard this chord before in a performance of Tristan and Isolde. I imagine you will have needed to taken a cushion for 4.5 hours. But it's also been used in countless other places, in particular in film scores. But imagine being in the audience there in the 19th century, something completely new. It was revolutionary. And this is, again, the origins of jazz right here. And the opera explores this yearning and this longing for 4.5 hours. But it's not until the very, very end that the chord is resolved. The chord is actually referred to as Isolde's Liebestod, that is to say, love's death. And what does it sound like? Well, you'll have to wait to the end of the deep dive to hear it, but you might be relieved to hear it's not going to be 4.5 hours. Okay, so we need to shift our focus at this point away from Tristan and towards this chap here, this merry figure here, which is Claude Debussy, who is a French composer who was pivotal in the transition in the modern era of Western music. He was born in 1862, only a few years before Wagner died, and Debussy is often associated with Impressionist music. It's a term he personally disliked, but it is widely used nonetheless to describe his innovative compositions. His works are noted for their sensory content. And you've got to bear in mind that up until that point, the 19th century, the Romantic era, is dealing with emotions, but not necessarily senses. That the idea that you could represent love, you could represent passion, you could represent longing and desire and fury is very much a romantic ideal. The music of Debussy is much more about generating images and sounds and the feeling of being somewhere. If you take, for example, his beautiful piece Clair de Lune or La Mer, you very much get a sensory feeling of being by the sea or in the moonlight. And his incredible work, the Prelude à l'après-midi d'un faune, which is the first full work, really, of the 20th century, it just makes you feel like you are there on a summer's afternoon, just basking in the sunlight. And it's that sensory nature. And he creates that by using non-traditional scales, non-traditional tonal structures, the kinds of sounds that we hadn't heard before. And his music is often described as the kind of equivalent of Impressionism in that movement in painting that focuses on capturing a sensory impression rather than detailed reality, such as the work of Seurat here. And whilst Debussy rejected the term impressionist, there's no denying that his compositions share the aesthetics of the suggestion and atmosphere rather than explicit detail. And he's also associated with what's called the symbolist movement, which emphasizes emotions and sensations over literal interpretation. Now, in his quest for new expressive means, Debussy broke away from traditional musical forms and of tonalities and even of harmonic structures. His music, as I've already said, uses unconventional scales such as the whole tone scale, as well as the pentatonic scale. If you're familiar with his Flaxen Hair, that's based on a pentatonic scale. And often his music evades a clear sense of key, and his innovative treatment of musical time and rhythm and colour and form, much like Wagner's music, exerted a profound influence on later generations of composers, except his music is a lot more subtle, a lot softer, and a lot more friendly. Now, I bring Debussy into this discussion because he was fascinated by the Tristan Chord. He incorporated it into actually a huge number of his works. Echoes of Tristan can be heard throughout his opera written in 1902 called Pelléas et Mélisande. It's also used in The Sunken Cathedral. And in both of those cases, he treats this chord in different ways, in a very sensory way. As part of Pelléas et Mélisande, this is again about love, but a very physical sense of love. The Sunken Cathedral, it's to give you a sense of wonder and awe at this edifice. But it's not until he publishes his collection of pieces for solo piano called Children's Corner in 1908 we see perhaps the culmination of his relationship with the Tristan Chord. Now, Children's Corner is a collection of light, mostly subtle, gentle, fun pieces about the lives of children. So the movements are about the kind of thing that children care about, such as being at school and toys and dollies and dancing in the snow. Now, the final movement is a joyous and flamboyant piece based and inspired by ragtime, which of course had been developed by Scott Joplin, whose music we've been exploring recently here on the channel. Joplin had brought the concept of ragtime really to combine the African and blues rhythms that he was surrounded by as a boy, combining them with the classical elements that he'd been taught, and he created this new style. And this new style went global. It was a huge deal, and Debussy obviously admired it a lot. Now, the movement was originally titled The Gollywog's Cakewalk, was named after the dolls that were popular in the early 20th century. These days, the movement is generally referred to as simply Cakewalk for obvious reasons. Now, the piece opens with a distinctive unison fanfare-like section with a stride bass developing afterwards, and that sounds like this. Not that bit. And here's the stride bass. Okay, fabulous. So that opening, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, is very, very typical of ragtime. You think about the entertainer. So you have that descending fanfare, and then you have the stride bass. So Debussy is very clearly modelling his work after Joplin. Now, the majority of this piece is strident and brash and bold, like the most confident, loud-mouthed kid you can imagine. Unlike most of Debussy's softer and gentler output, it's huge fun for both the pianist and audience alike. But the middle section features several repetitions of the Tristan opening. The score, as you can see here on screen, shows the expressive term céder, okay, as in to yield, to slow the music, as in to cede. I cede to my learned colleague. It also says avec une grande émotion, as in with great emotion, with huge feeling. And the Tristan chord rises and falls to lighter and less intense resolutions. Have a little listen to it. So as you can hear, the chord is there, but it's actually resolving in a way that Wagner never did. And well, we know that this is Debussy being cheeky. This is Debussy trolling Wagner, thumbing his nose at him. Why? Well, you can hear it. The music is laughing at him with this. It's not subtle at all. Have a listen again. And he does it again with great emotion. And then, ha, 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 ha. As I say, it's not subtle. He's laughing at Wagner. He's laughing at the, I suppose, the overblown, stuffy attitudes to music that he was trying to break away from. Now, at this point, I'm delighted to introduce a complete performance of this wonderful Cakewalk, as recorded for us here on Homechoir by Anna. And you'll see the score on screen, so you can count how many times does that Tristan chord come back, and just enjoy this amazing performance of Debussy's Cakewalk. magnificent playing. I'm sure you'll agree. And if you enjoyed that, and of course you did, please do consider hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and leaving us a comment underneath. And we will hear more of Anna's wonderful playing next week. But just to return to the subject at hand, how do Wagner and Debussy's uses of this Tristan chord compare? Well, in Wagner's hands, the chord symbolises this unresolved longing, this musical embodiment of the tragic love between Tristan and Isolde. Its non-resolution, which is maintained, teased throughout the opera, creates a sense of unending tension and yearning. And this aligns with Wagner's concept of endless melody, I mean really endless, and his innovative approach to harmonic progression. But on the other hand, Debussy's use of the Tristan chord is much more coloristic and atmospheric. Rather than expressing a specific emotion or dramatic situation, the chord in Debussy's hands contributes to the overall sound landscape, reflecting his impressionistic aesthetic. This is indicative of Debussy's approach to harmony, not as structure or narrative, but as a means of creating sensory impressions, from delight to wonder, frankly, to laughter. But it's not just these composers who made use of the Tristan chord. In 1958, the incomparable Bernard Herrmann incorporated the Tristan chord into the soundtrack to Hitchcock's masterpiece, Vertigo, which, a little aside, if you haven't seen, is an absolute masterpiece. It's one of my top 10 favourite films. The score is astonishing. And the film itself, a story about yearning and tragic love, depends on the audience truly believing that the main character, called Scotty, played by James Stewart, is obsessed with a lady called Madeline. And the use of the Tristan chord sparks a recognition, subconsciously or even consciously, in the audience's minds. Listen to a little bit of this cue, which is called Sleep, as Scotty watches Madeline sleep. It's one long string of Tristan chords resolving, but in an unsatisfying way. I can only play you a tiny bit of it. The full cue is linked in the description. Have a listen to this. And you can see here, the cue itself is very, very short. It's only 10 bars long, but it's a string of Tristan chords to just yearning for this character. Another prominent composer, Paul Lansky, wrote a piece in 1973 using technology, using an IBM computer. And it's a highly influential piece. It's called Mild und Leise, which are the opening words of Isolde's Liebestod. Mild und Leise translates to mildly and gently. And then, in 2016, the band Radiohead sampled sections of Mild und Leise in their track Idioteque, meaning that the Tristan chord has officially been brought bang up to date in the 21st century. And I've linked to all of those performances in the description. Watch the earlier one, watch the electronic one first, and do bear in mind, it's quite challenging, but you'll definitely hear the Tristan chord in it, and then, of course, the Radiohead to follow. And finally, one to leave you with is an amazing piece by PDQ Bach, that is to say Professor Peter Schikele, who's written this piece called Last Tango in Bayreuth, and it is for bassoons. Have a little listen to this. So you get the idea. Now, one more thing you thought I'd forgotten. The resolution of the Tristan chord in Wagner's hands. Well, I leave it to Sir Antonio Pappano of the Royal Opera House to explain. What happens at the end, Sir Antonio?
Wagner's genius is that he wants the music never to resolve. The love is never ending. The pain is never ending. There is no resolution. The only resolution comes at the very end of the opera, finally. And I'll play you that. You hear finally the theme for the last time. And listen. Ah. That's 4.5 hours later.
There you are. So you've had to wait, but you've heard the last chord. It is worth hearing and, if possible, experiencing Tristan or Isolde. Do bear in mind, it's long, but it is an experience to be cherished. And so now a simple chord, which was almost certainly discovered whilst improvising at the piano, has so much to say. It changed the way we write and think about music forever. No matter whether we laugh or cry at it, we can't deny its impact. Thank you so much for being here today, ladies and gentlemen. I do hope you enjoyed today's deep dive. If you did, tell your friends about it, share it widely. We want it to get hundreds and hundreds of views, if not even thousands. So please tell your friends about these lectures, which are completely free. They are aimed at absolutely everyone. And do please join us next week for our latest deep dive. We're going to be talking about George Gershwin, exploring his short but incredibly productive life. And we're going to hear another performance by Anna, his gorgeous piece of piano, which is called Blue Lullaby, bringing a little bit of the choral back into our deep dive lectures. But in the meantime, I will see you on Friday for something completely different. I mean, where else can you get Wagner's Tristan Chords, followed by I Saw a Mouse in Old Amsterdam, but here on Homechoir. So do please make sure you're subscribed to the channel, do tell your friends about us, and I will see you very, very soon. Take care, friends. All the best. Bye.